kiss for you.
Alright, so we're going to be talking about Zenless Zone Zero and how it started to dominate the market, or in the mobile game market, as well as the general populist market. And the first thing I really want to talk about when it comes to this is really just how it kind of got to that point, specifically in regards to the competition. And what I really want to start and really want to kind of emphasize is the fact that MiHoYo and Hoyoverse understand more than anything something that Nintendo understood, and something more specifically that Supercell understood, and that is polish. Now, what you might not be aware of or kind of grasp if you're not really in the market is Supercell. And right now, the video on screen is basically the original footage of the game when it was releasing in 2016 from the original developers, and kind of showing off the gameplay and showing off how the systems work and stuff. At that point, there had not been another game like Clash Royale. There had not been another game to that polish, to that degree of clarity and intent in its design and sort of its ethos, and sort of everything that it was trying to do came together. We had not seen that before in a free-to-play title, right? We had sure seen that in other AAA games, but this was a developer that had money from Clash of Clans, and they go and do it again with Clash Royale. They do this whole other tower defense style thing with the different troops and the card system with fantastic art and sound and general design, and the gameplay design working really well, and just everything here coming together and feeling extremely well done, in a point where we hadn't seen it in other mobile games at that time, right? And even to a lot of extent now, you don't really see that level of care put into something that's going to be free to play, that's going to be on a phone or whatever. You see a lot of shoddier experiences, ones that are just made with less attention to detail than something like Supercell does. But what that allowed them to do, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit in my upcoming video about Supercell, is what that allowed them to do is charge a lot of money for their microtransactions, their things, the gems and stuff that they had. The screenshot up here is the current prices, but they were also the prices back in 2016, 2018, right? These prices, $1 for 80 gems, $5 for 500, 10 for 1200, 20 for 2500, that kind of thing, began to be copied by a large quantity of the mobile gaming market without understanding why Supercell did this. Supercell, and this was something discovered at the time that eventually became known as whaling, right? But it is inefficient to use the money here that you spend on gems to unlock chests for cards, right? The card system and monetizing cards and being able to get ahead by spending a bunch of money on gems to get chests, to get more cards, to level them up, to have better stats and all that, right? That is not an efficient way to effectively farm cards. If you want to spend a bunch of money and be efficient, there's other ways you could have done it in the game rather than just buying gems to buy chests, right? You could farm different tournaments and different events and things, and use the gems to basically get rid of any failures or speed up chest openings, right? And that would have been chest openings you get from matches, and that would have been a much more efficient way of dealing with this whole thing. But instead, what you could also do is spend $20, 2,500 gems, to unlock a legendary chest, which has a bunch of things in it from a variety of different sources, and that would give you a leg up, a legendary most likely, as well as a bunch of epic cards and just things that were harder to come across. Because at the time, your ability to unlock cards was kind of separated by the arena you got in, and that arena meant winning matches. And so what you would end up doing is buying these higher end chests to get legendaries that you might not otherwise be able to access by just normally playing the game, because you're able to the legendary drop rate on anything but legendary chests at that time was very low, and there wasn't that many legendaries in the game, and so they ended up being pretty good, and so people would buy these chests and hoping that they get a legendary and all that. And so what you do is effectively waste your money, because you'd be inefficiently spending a bunch of money on these gems to open these chests. And again, every chest is, the legendary ones are 2,500 gems, so that's $20 a chest. Opening, getting a bunch of stuff, all that. And they were able to do that because they made this very polished product. What companies outside of that saw was, hey, they're making a bunch of money, people are spending it on this because they're, whaling or whatever. We can do that too, but put much less effort into our creation. So that's when we saw Clash of Clans and Clash Royale clones, well as other games that use the monetization style without the attention that Supercell did at the time. But the reason I bring that up is because it's really important in understanding why Hoyoverse and MiHoYo in general are doing so well, is to really understand what the precedent was. The precedent, when you don't look at companies like Supercell, is these lower quality, casual, hyper casual experiences, or something like Supercell that kind of sets the market and the tone and the prices. MiHoYo obviously went for that Supercell market. They went for that really high quality, really premium, really polished experience that has everything all put together and has really great systems and all that, with premium prices attached to its monetization. And because at the time that they did that with Honkai Impact 3rd, as well as Genshin Impact and Star Rail, as companies like Supercell, did their whole thing and started to kind of, deteriorate a little bit, MiHoYo very, succinctly and very quickly takes over the market because they're able to basically utilize the falling value of Supercell as well as that need for these very high quality experiences and basically sweep right under with Genshin Impact to release an incredibly ambitious and new experience that took a lot of elements from other games that were popular at the time in the open world genre and just really hit home on it with its aesthetic, with its music, with its design language, with its elemental, combat system and stuff, as well as its characters, and really create an identity for itself that let it live up to the hype. And now we come to Zenless Zone Zero, and the reason this is interesting and why it is more important is because this is not the same team that did Genshin and Star Rail. And you can feel that. From, again, what I understand, MiHoYo has about 5,000 employees right now. And those 5,000 employees are obviously split between their 4 main titles, right? Honkai Impact 3rd just got a recent update, so that's still being updated, and then Genshin, Star Rail, and now ZZZ. ZZZ doesn't feel like it was built on the scaffolding of Genshin and Star Rail. Genshin and Star Rail, respectively, between each other, are built on the same scaffolding, from the same menu and UI design to the same upgrade systems to the same aesthetic and characters and that kind of thing, to the same a lot of world building, right? Those are very similar, which makes sense. ZZZ doesn't feel like that. It was obviously being developed at the same time as Star Rail, and Star Rail came out first, but this game really feels, in its characters and everything else, like a Jet Set Radio or a World Ends With You kind of thing that really feels quite unique, and more importantly, the same level of polish that you would see out of a Supercell game. And I mention that to say, if the question is why they became the gold standard or how they became the gold standard, it's because they did the thing that made Supercell the gold standard. They focused on polish, they focused on gameplay, they focused on that level of consistency that you wouldn't otherwise see, and because of that, they made something that is so set up for success and so primed to do well that it doesn't really matter if it doesn't, because it has still set the bar. You will look, even the critical reviews of this game will praise its animation, will praise its music, will praise its character designs, will praise its action, and cutscenes and direction and all that. No matter what you actually think about the monetization aspect of the game, those elements are there and those are present, and they, monetization-wise, are not going away. But what is here is very clear. They want to make a game and then put stuff in it so that it's sustainable on a free-to-play model. They did not start off with something that needs to be monetized and then figure out what's the best wrapper to put around that. And what I really like to highlight in that capacity is something like the mobile games that you're seeing now that aren't from MiHoYo, right, that are kind of larger in scale. Star Wars Hunters was the game that came out, and it's a mobile-first platform. It's also on Switch. I don't think it's on, PC or anything like that. That game really, to me, and I found the best way to describe it, feels like a game that was made for monetization first, and how do we get a bunch of money out of people, and then figured out, okay, the way we do that is by making a Star Wars Overwatch style thing. It does not feel in its design and its intent like a game that was made with people that understood Star Wars and understood the quality and what you need of a hero shooter and just wanted to make a fun Star Wars-based hero shooter. It felt like a company, and this is, again, Zynga, it's technically Facebook and, Farmville and all that. This feels like a game that was designed originally to make money and then be a game second. And so when you look in the comparison, again, at these two games, they had a lot of money put into it, right? Zynga put a good amount of money into Star Wars Hunters. It's not the same. You don't feel that level of consideration that you do. And so that level of consideration is really why I feel like ZZZ really stood out. It also stood out because you can play it on mobile, you can play it on PC, and you can play it on PS5. Now, while that is not strictly unique, what it does is bridge that gap between, oh, it's a mobile game, why would I play that? Something like Taurus Land, for example, is a mobile-first MMO, and so people are like, oh god, right, and not really into that whole thing because it's mobile first versus being PC first. This ZZZ really feels like a PC first or console first game that just happened to be for mobile in some UI elements and the gacha elements, right? But really it shines best on the PC because there's not a lot of games like this on the PC. This game is a character action game, right? If you couldn't tell from the gameplay and all that, it's a character action game focused first, which is different than Genshin and Star Rail. More importantly, it is not something that you would typically see on PC, right? You think character action games of Bayonetta, and you think of, Platinum games and that series, and you think of other kind of forward-focused AAA, full-priced experiences. There's not really any free-to-play character action games that I can think of, right? And so you get this experience that anyone who wants a character action game probably has already played Bayonetta, probably already played DMC, and it's going to depend on if they like, certain aspects of it or not. This is a game that's free to play, that you can play for, 20, 30 hours before you feel like you really need to spend any money on it. Has great characters, great music, all that stuff. Runs on a phone, runs on PC, runs on consoles, cross-play, cross-progression, all that. Not multiplayer, which is another thing I think a lot of people, forget about these games. These are single-player experiences. You buying into gacha doesn't do anything for this game. It gets you stuff quicker, but it doesn't help anyone else. This is not a multiplayer game. You're not competing against anyone. You're not battling against anyone. You're not doing this in co-op or anything like that. These are your characters that you own, playing through a campaign and story and all that stuff. And the variety as well is something that I think needs to be commended. But it's important to know this is a single-player game. At no point during the story, during the side quest, the roguelike mode, any of the arcade stuff, any of the TV dungeons, any of the content in the game, do you match with other people. And so there is no point where it becomes pay to win or any kind of like that. There's no point where it becomes FOMO other than your personal aspirations and goals for the game. There's no point where the game feels like it's forcing you to spend money or that it requires you to spend money to progress. There's no point in this game that makes you feel like this is a mobile game. It feels like I want to make a game. The developer's like, I want to make a game, and a character action game, and a love of fighting games, and a love of that thing. And then they figured out how they can make money off of that with the requirement that it's free to play. And something like that deserves a ton of respect, and that is why they are the gold standard. Because when you do something like what Supercell used to do, you demand respect. You will not look at this game and not feel the amount of time and effort and care put into this game. No matter what you think of the gacha, no matter what you think of anything else about the ethics of it or anything, this game is and will always be, no matter what they do with it, the pure creativity and soul of the developers who made it. And that's not something I can say about most games in general, and very much not something you can say about these modern live service games. So I just think that, throughout all of this, people need to really understand that these are just games to have fun with. And if you're having fun, great, and you're not, you can leave, right? But to slander this game, to say that it's not what it is, and to say that it's, predatory and all that, is really just missing the fact that this game, while it has a monetization model that not a lot of people, will like, does have a reason. It is not trying to just be predatory and be the way it is to get people out of money. It's trying to be a game first. And I think the more people that realize that, the more people calm down, all that, the more fun people are going to have, right? The games are supposed to be fun, and I think a lot of this discord around it is really just that. Really, it's a lot of noise, and I think when people step back from the noise, you get something that I think a lot more people are going to be interested in and checking out and all that, and obviously it's up to your personal standards, but that was just my opinion, and I kind of wanted to get that out there and sort of show everyone how this changed, because it really is a big shift and a big deal. And I don't think, you know, a lot of people might scoff at the fact that this game's probably going to make $100 million in its first month and be like, oh my god, how dare they, spray on shoulder and stuff. And it's just, I don't see that, right? I don't see that kind of, that malice and intent, especially in the game.